Ukosat, you're going to give Matthew Parks co-host abilities, Asisa, for Bowmans. You will give them all
Yes,
co-hosting
yes.
abilities. Then Bonabazo share the
Yes.
screen.
I'm going to do that, but I was just saying as a backup money.
Okay, sure. Ubonile imessage yam kuwe, Dr. George, uti he's going to leave the meeting early today at 10 a.m.
No, I haven't checked my WhatsApp. Maybe next I wanna know how Nekidula Fatikiriki I'll text it.
Okay, sharp.
Because I'm actually trying to get hold of the chairperson, but or the third person, the fourth person, Bowman Gilfilen, don't want to make an oral presentation. Alan made a mistake, but they were asking just for e-link. So yeah, now he interpreted that for them saying they want to present.
Which one?
Bowman, the last,
Oh,
the
the last one. Okay, yes, because we don't even have a presentation from them.
Yes, because that's why they didn't send a presentation. They called me Maban. So now I'm trying to get hold of the chairperson, Kim Alete, and I'm also trying to send an updated link. Kim Alete, and
Updated
I'm
link.
also trying to send an updated.
Elsie, you've muted yourself again.
I could have removed them. So that's why I will send an updated link. So you think I should just leave it if I've removed them?
I leave it, Elsie. Yeah, no, leave it. Chairperson can just alert everyone. Yeah, just leave it. Don't send another updated link.
Okay, I hope he answers now. Let me talk to him. Okay, Manesu.
Okay, sharp.
Thanks. All right. Hi, B. Hello.
Yeah. Yeah, Bo.
We also have a colleague that will be joining, but Buzelwa Mongo,
Uvelwa.
Buzelwa Mongo. Because
Okay.
she'll be taking the minutes because Umgaji said ask her to take the minutes because she felt it would be too much for me to be doing both my trainer and Alan's trainer. So she'll just be taking the minutes here.
Okay, sure.
So maybe she'll just come with her name, where because she doesn't know the protocol or people must identify themselves. Buzelwa Mongo.
Okay, sure.
Apparently, sister Tombi Koskop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, show us.
All right. Thanks.
Recording in progress.
Good morning. Tebogo, Busha. How many are we here? The platform, honorable members.
Morning, Chair. There are only 5 members on the platform.
Okay. Hey, Charlie. Bo Mavilatsa. Bo Vuan.
Rova zwavhuḓi vhone
Rovuwa abacheke nox na Zanele recorate.
ndi ḓo vha tshekha zwino.
Oh.
Good morning, Chair. The disciplined EFF is here.
Yeah, I can see you, Comrade Manu. All the way from the most richest square mile in Africa.
Exactly, Chair.
Yeah. I'm to Nox. They are there down in the city of Matthew Goni, sometimes there's no network. Okay, let's start in the meantime because we are not voting. Welcome, honorable members, Standing Committee Finance. Welcome to our guests who are here to make submissions. Treasury, SARS, and all the entities that report to National Treasury, the support team of SCOF and all other parliamentary teams that are present, the media, you are all welcome. The purpose of today's meeting is to get submissions from the stakeholders on the Pension Funds Amendment Bill B3 2024. Public participation is the cornerstone of democracy. No decisions should be taken by Parliament without the active involvement of the public. So it's quite very important that the public should be actively involved in the decision-making process of Parliament. So let me officially open the meeting. And are there apologies?
No apologies, sir, but Dr. George indicated that he'll be leaving the meeting at 10 for another engagement. He won't stay for the duration of the meeting.
Chairperson, you are muted.
Oh, thanks very much, Ubuthe. Thanks. Yeah, let's move to item 2, public hearings on the Pension Funds Amendment Bill B3 2024. We will have 3 stakeholders. Bowmans have written to us to indicate that they won't be making an oral submission. They are satisfied with their written submission that they have sent to us. So we'll have 3 stakeholders making submissions this morning. How much time is this? From 5 past to 20 past, meaning what?
15 minutes a stakeholder.
Okay. 15 minutes. Now is 7 minutes past 9. Comrade Matthew, you are the first. You know very well the rules. You are a regular here. So you will start. Over to you, Kosato. Comrade.
Thanks. Morning, Chair, and thank you, members, for giving us the space just to share our views quickly. I'm sure we might even do less than the 15 minutes.
The background is back today.
No, I thought of you, Chair, because I didn't want to disappoint
Yeah.
my neighbor from Limpopo, so I had to honor Limpopo, Chair.
Oh, no, yeah, good.
No, thanks, Chair. And yeah, thanks to members. And I think also thanks to colleagues in Treasury as well for the work we've been able to do collectively. I think as government, Treasury, Parliament, industry, and COSATU. So, Chair, I think for us, we support the bill. I think we welcome the Pension Fund Amendment Bill. We would have loved it to have been part of the Revenue Laws Amendment Bill, but I think we understand there were some administrative hiccups, etc., etc. So I think we do welcome the Treasury move with speed to bring it to Parliament. And of course, this is a critical component of the two-part pension reforms, which I think have got cross-party support, whether amongst political parties or the legislature or the executive or industry or labor. I think that's quite a unique thing. It's not often we manage to achieve that consensus. And Chair, the two-part pension reforms, and of course, the bill itself, these are a product of extensive engagements, between COSATU and Treasury at Parliament over the past 4 years, and I think with industry too. They provide for a package of reforms which we believe will give relief to millions of struggling workers in the public and the private sectors. I think it's also useful to help fix what we think are existing legal challenges, inflexibility in the existing laws around pension funds, and I think also ultimately, Chair, also to help boost savings as well. So I think we do welcome the bill, and we look forward to the implementation on the 1st of September this year. And I think, Chair, needless to say, I'm sure all members get a lot of queries from workers. Workers are literally waiting anxiously for this relief. Chair, I think, so we welcome the PFA bill, we welcome the two-part pension reforms. We do believe there's one critical amendment, which was highlighted by Treasury, and I think supported by members at the previous SCOF meeting, I think the beginning of February, just to ensure that the bill meets its intended objectives and beneficiaries. So, Chair, we're specifically referring to the need just to insert an additional inclusion so that it covers the government employee pension fund, the ESCOM pension fund, for lack of the better terminology, the telecommunications pension fund. And I stand to be corrected, but it could also be the Transnet one as well, but I think Treasury would guide in that regard. But any other pension funds, Chair, which might be governed by separate acts of Parliament, just simply to ensure that all pension funds and provident funds are included in the reforms. Chair, we think it's critical this matter be included now in the bill, that we don't, defer this issue. If we didn't include it now in the bill, we would literally see millions of workers not benefiting from the two-part reforms in September. That would be a devastation. So, Chair, I think just to highlight, we support the two-part reforms. As I said, we've engaged extensively collectively as this team here in this meeting on it since 2020 in various formations. And I think we are really pleased with the progress and the significant consensus we've managed to achieve. It was not always easy. There was a lot of heated moments, but I think at the end of the day, we're on the same page. And so we do kind of welcome the kind of common agreement we have, whether it's from government or from Parliament, that workers would be allowed access to the savings without having to resign or cash out the entire pension funds, that immediate relief would be available when the system comes into effect, that implementation date is 1 September this year, that all workers, including members of the GPF, ESCOM, Telkom, Transnet, any other pension or provident funds would be included. And that's an issue we had really had consensus on, I think, since 2022, on the specific need to include public servants, for example. Yes, they might have not lost their jobs, they might receive salaries, but they're supporting relatives who've lost jobs and wages. Any reflection on the national credit regulator debt levels shows you that there's no work in this country is not drowning in debt, public or private. And of course, that the reforms is binding on all pension funds, with all workers being entitled to immediate relief and the savings pot, and that we'll also have future engagements just to address the issue of workers who are retrenched to ensure that they're able to access the full savings when they lose their jobs. So we do think that this two-part reforms, whilst not perfect, is a progressive compromise, and it really does achieve many positive things. It will prevent workers from needing to resign to access the full pension funds. They can rather have access to a limited portion. We'll be preserving 2/3 of future savings for retirement and helping to ensure more workers can retire in comfort, not in poverty. In essence, Chair, yes, the relief wouldn't be able to settle a home loan or a car loan, but in essence, it's equivalent to a 13th check, whether it's immediate relief or the future savings relief. And a 13th check helps to plug holes. It's not going to pay your home loan, but it will make holes, plug holes like medical debts or fixing a car, paying school fees, paying credit cards, etc. And at the same time, Chair, we also help to minimize disruptions to the economy by enabling workers to remain employed whilst getting relief. And I think, Chair, over the longer term, because we'll be having a savings pot and a savings culture being introduced, and workers knowing that if there's an emergency, they do have a backup plan, we're actually going to help stimulate the economy and help boost the savings culture. And of course, when the money does come in through the immediate relief in September, that'll be an injection into the economy because workers will be paying off debt, paying off bills, etc. And of course, the state would also recover some of that money through the variety of taxes as well. So it's a positive cyclical injection. So we support the bill completely, but we are concerned, and I don't think there's any disagreement amongst all of us, that we do need to ensure that we include the GEPF, which has a separate act, but also the Eskom, the telecommunications, I think the Transnet, and any other pension funds which have separate acts. And again, just to avoid, if we don't fix it, that the millions of workers would be left behind. And of course, for those workers who are really waiting, looking forward to it, including teachers and police officers and nurses, etc., Eskom employees, that will really be crushing the hopes if we didn't include them now. This is really the ideal opportunity. And I think we had discussed this specific issue. So it's not a new issue we're discussing. We had discussed it, I think, must be about 6 hearings this committee has had on this matter the past 4 years. I think we've discussed it. So it's not a new issue. I think just making sure we cover all of our bases, that we do include them. So a simple single proposal to the bill, Chair. And I think Treasury did issue a statement yesterday, which was quite helpful. Just to say that here's a proposal to ensure that we do include these other pension funds, so GEPF, Eskom, telecommunications. I'm not sure about Transnet, but yes, I think the principle is there. Chair, in terms of the implementation date, I think we've welcomed the consensus we have kind of reached between Parliament, Treasury, industry, and ourselves around the 1st of September 2024 implementation target date. So it's also just critical that we get everything done timelessly, and one appreciates we're in the final run of this parliamentary term, but we do have space. And I think, Chair, just to make the point, we can't afford any delay, so we can't kick this to the next parliament. And I think, Chair, without being a prophet of doom, if, for example, we didn't include the GEPF, for example, in this bill, we fear, Chair, that many workers actually just choose to resign out of frustration, and that's, I think, what we all want to avoid: employers, workers, the state, etc. Chair, just getting towards the end. So I think, yeah, again, around the implementation date, I think just to make sure we collectively stick to that deadline, and that Parliament has space to pass these 2 bills, including the Revenue Laws Bill, which is before the Select Committee. That we make sure we just amend this one to include these additional pension funds. And of course, we're keen for Parliament to get done as soon as possible, so that the Presidency, Treasury, SARS, the pension funds also have sufficient time, especially the pension funds, just to undertake their various administrative processes, which, are fairly straightforward, but I think especially the pension funds are quite, and the FFCA do involve quite a bit of legwork, but not unmanageable. Then, of course, Treasury, and we'll also assist working with Treasury, with the FFCA and pension funds, just to make sure that we're ready for not 1st of March, sorry, there's a typo, 1st of September implementation date. And then, of course, Treasury should also just make sure it expedites its regulations and other processes as well. It might sound very obvious, but we've seen at times in government departments, unfortunately, simple things just get delayed. Chair, I think once this process is done in Parliament, we would have to conclude the remaining matter with Treasury colleagues around the issue of just ensure that workers, when they're retrenched, that they have also access to the full savings, because if a worker loses the job, they should not be told not to touch any savings, because they fear losing their homes, etc., etc. And look, there's basically what's already there in the existing law, but I think just to make sure that we cover retrenchments in the next round, but that we should just conclude those engagements quite soon, so that when the TLABs are tabled at Parliament in August and processed by Parliament, before they rise for the December recess, that they're concluded, and then basically they can then come into effect on the 1st of March next year. But that would not be a substantial change, but just merely about extending relief for those who are retrenched from their jobs, etc. So, Chair, just in conclusion, we're pleased with the progress we've made. We support the two-part reforms. We support this bill, and we appreciate the positive engagement we've had collectively as Treasury, Parliament, Industry, Labour. But we just do need to move with speed to make sure we stick to 1st of September. And this really is a progressive victory for workers. It's a very positive win-win solution. We would be very fearful of any delays. We don't think there's a need for them. But again, Chair, I think just to emphasize, the single amendment for this bill is just to include the Eskom, GPF, telecoms, and other pension funds. But I think this thing can be done with a final leg, and yeah, we're quite pleased with the progress of it, so Chair. So let me stop there, Chair. It's a very simple, short presentation, but I think this proposal is also obviously very critical. But yeah, thanks, Chair, members.
Thanks very much, Comrade Matthew, for submissions by COSATU and also saving almost 5 minutes of your allocated time. Thanks very much. The next stakeholder, ASISA.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Audrey Messerschmidt from ASISA. I'm joined by my colleague Rosemary Lightbody. Thank you. We are grateful for the opportunity to present to you again today. Just to recap quickly, who is ASISA? ASISA represents its members, which are retirement fund administrators, investment managers, long-term insurers, collective investment schemes, all service providers to retirement funds. Our members understand the administrative systems and other business processes that the two-pot system will require, and they interact regularly with retirement fund members and understand the difficulties that these individuals often face. Our members welcome the introduction of the two-pot system, and we believe it will ultimately have a fundamental positive impact on the capital available to fund members on retirement. The system is to be introduced on the 1st of September through the recent amendments made to the Income Tax Act in the 2023 Revenue Laws Amendment Bill passed by National Assembly and currently for concurrence in the National Council of Provinces. Before pension funds can implement the two-pot system, however, they need to amend their rules, and this Pension Funds Act need to be amended so that they can have those rules amended, registered by the FSCA. The time is very tight, and ASISA members do not wish for unnecessary delays. While anxious for certainty and final legislation so that funds can proceed with registration of rule amendments, we have several serious concerns with the provisions in the bill. I'll summarize them quickly before going into detail. Certain amendments are problematic and are not required for the two-pot system. These should be excluded from the bill. A significant problem is the contradictions in the bill with the Divorce Act. The Divorce Act is not merely expanded upon in the bill, but some important provisions are completely contradicted. In February, National Treasury indicated to this committee that allowable deductions from a member's accumulated assets in a pension fund will be taken across all three components of the fund. In the case of, for example, housing loans and repayment of housing loans and divorce orders, but the drafting in the bill suggests that, in fact, the retirement pot will be excluded. There's a special treatment of the savings components, particularly in respect of divorce orders, and we don't believe that is advisable. And then several amendments, the drafting thereof needs improvement and clarification. To delve into the detail, the matters that are problematic and are not required from two-pot system, which we propose should be excluded from the bill. Section 37(1)(a) provides for the payment of divorce awards to non-member spouse out of pension income. That is a complete change from the current position, which is that on divorce, the retirement fund capital is shared. Many issues need discussion. I mean, what will the pensioner survive on if the ex-spouse takes the income? What about out-of-fund pensions provided by insurers? And the Income Tax Act has no provision for taxation in these circumstances. Another example is a provision of divorce orders to be sent to the fund by the registrar of the court instead of by the ex-spouse as it is currently. There may be difficulty finding contact details for an ex-spouse. And if the registrar of the court is slow in sending the court order to the fund, there could be difficulty in finalizing it as soon as possible. A serious problem is the contradictions in the bill with the Divorce Act. The Act is not expanded on. Some important provisions are completely contradicted. The changes proposed in this bill are essential for the two-pot system and the clean break principle on divorce to be properly applied. But in order to do so, these changes must be stated to supersede the Divorce Act. The drafting does not do that, which makes the changes worthless. In February, Treasury indicated to this committee that allowable deductions from a member's accumulated assets in a pension fund will be taken across all three components in the fund. But in the case of payment of housing loans and divorce orders, the drafting of the bill suggests that, in fact, the retirement pot will be excluded. This is a table showing the before and after position based on the current drafting of the bill. For occupational funds, the third and two-third contributions to the savings pot and retirement pot. If you divorce before the implementation date, everything is shared. If you divorce after the implementation date, the savings pot will be shared, but not if it has already been accessed in the tax year, unless the Act, the Pension Funds Act is changed. The retirement pot will not be shared on divorce unless the Pension Funds Act is changed to state that it overrides the Divorce Act. The vested pot, the position stays the same. It is shared on divorce before and after the implementation date. For preservation funds and retirement annuity funds, preservation fund, before implementation date, 100% will be shared. After implementation date, nothing will be shared unless the Pension Fund Act is changed to state that it overrides the Divorce Act. For retirement annuity funds, 100% shared before implementation date. After implementation date, it's shared on divorce, but the amount due could exceed the amount available in the fund, especially if the savings pot has been regularly accessed, unless the Pension Funders Act to change to state that it overrides the Divorce Act. Then in terms of housing loans, before the implementation date, the position will be that what is available can be used to repay the loan on default. After the implementation date, the pension fund the savings pot cannot be used to repay the loan on default, not if already accessed in that tax year, unless Section 37D is clarified. The same for the retirement pot. It cannot be used to repay a loan on default unless the Act is amended, and the vested pot rights stay the same. The savings component, we believe, is given unfair protection. The bill proposes that if a fund member's spouse sends the fund a formal notification that they have instituted divorce proceedings, then the fund must not allow the fund member to withdraw from their savings component or obtain a housing loan or a guarantee for the fund. We don't agree with this, particularly in respect of divorce orders. A fund member's rights should be fairly balanced with the rights of a non-member spouse. Divorces can take a long time. The fund should need a court interdict before a fund member's retirement fund access rights are removed for an extended period of time, and a fund member then has a chance to state their case to the court. In any event, the vested component can be accessed on resignation, and the member's spouse will need a court interdict to remove the member's access rights to that. Drafting of several amendments need improvement and clarification, and those are itemized and explained in the detailed document submitted to this committee. The two-pot system proposals introduce a significant change to the retirement system in South Africa. Our members support the broad principles and aims of the system, but once the requirement amendments to the Pension Funds Act has been passed through Parliament and gazetted, pension funds and the FSCA need time to amend and register rule amendments so that fund members' expectations can be met on the 1st of September. The amendments to the Pension Funds Act must therefore be drafted clearly and with serious issues such as the conflict with the Divorce Act and the ambiguous Section 30C deduction provisions resolved. Thank you.
Thanks, Asisa, for your submission and also sticking to lesser time than allocated. Thanks very much. The next stakeholder, IRFA. Yes. IRFA.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair, committee members and others, and thank you very much for affording the Institute of Retirement Funds Africa the opportunity to present to the committee. I am joined by my colleague Nancy Andrews, who is head of the IRFA Legal and Technical Committee, and she will take us through our presentation. Suffice to say at this point that IRFA strongly supports the two-pot regime and welcomes it. Nancy will just go through some small obstacles we foresee at this point. Thanks, Nancy. I'm going to hand over to you.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning, committee members. Please let me know if you can see the slides.
Yes, we can. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you. I think that the Institute for Retirement Funds collaborates with the other partners in the industry, and our submission today is not far off from what Asisa said, but just to highlight, just can't seem to move my slides.
Ah, there it's moving.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just to highlight that the IRFA and its members are fully supportive of the two-pot implementation, and to confirm that the IRFA membership includes retirement funds, retirement fund administrators, investment managers, trustees of funds, and members of retirement funds. And they all understand the implications of this new retirement reform principle, and we understand what needs to be done to give effect to this. But time is a big concern for us at the moment. As we understand the legislative landscape and how this will be rolled out, we can see both the Pension Funds Amendment Bill and the Revenue Laws Amendment Bill actually being rolled out in parallel to each other. And on the 20th of February, we saw that the Revenue Laws Amendment Bill was adopted by Parliament. We then actually saw that we understand that on Friday the 15th, NCOP will be deliberating on this bill, and we're hoping that that bill will actually come into effect and promulgated as soon as possible. We still got a way to go with the Pension Funds Amendment Bill, but I think that the most important concern for the industry is that we need both these bills to be promulgated in order to actually give effect and be ready for 1 September 2024. So I think that, again, like Asisa said, time is of the essence for us. Getting ready for the implementation and is of paramount importance, and equally not having this bills actually being promulgated in time can have negative outcomes for members who are waiting for the 1st of September 2024 to actually withdraw from their savings component. In addition to this, when the budget was released, the second draft of the Revenue Laws Bill was also released, and we saw additional changes come in. And our concern is that we can't actually wait for the second draft to actually be finalized before we actually start changing systems and doing additional work on it. So we need to actually understand, we need the urgency of these bills to be promulgated so that we can give effect to it. We also understand that there's 54 bills in progress in Parliament at the moment. The question is whether this will be promulgated in time. And I think the plea from the industry is that these bills be taken into account and prioritized and given and promulgated as soon as possible. Again, as Asisa alluded to in their submission, which we fully support, that there are lots of two-pot, non-related two-pot changes in the bill. And these non-related two-pot changes may have a knock-on effect in terms of administrative development to give effect to the two-pot. Our submission actually includes, our submission clearly requests that these non-two-pot changes be delayed or be given a different effective date than 1 September 2024, so that it allows the retirement fund administrators to concentrate on the on developing systems and implementing the two-pot related changes before they actually start giving effect to additional additional non-related two-pot changes, which could easily be actually introduced through the through COFI or the Pension Funds Amendment Bill. I think that we appreciate the new definition of pension interest that has been inserted in the bill, and we thank Treasury for collaborating with the industry on this and engaging with the industry on this, because it tends to cover all of it tends to cover all types of retirement funds that we have. The issue is there is that discrepancy as to which bill, which act will take priority, whether or not it would be the Pension Funds Act or whether it would be the Divorce Act. What we have seen released yesterday from Treasury is the changes for the Transnet funds, for GPF and the post office funds. And in that bill, there is specific wording that actually says that this act, meaning the Pension Funds Act, would actually, if there's a conflict between the Pension Funds Act and the Divorce Act, this act, the Pension Funds Act, would prevail. So we need to actually have that particular clause that is already included for the public sector funds included in this bill, which would actually remove all of the concerns that we have as to whether or not a benefit in terms of pension interest is payable under the Divorce Act or whether it's payable under the Pension Funds Act. If that is done, I think that it makes it much easier, it makes it clearer, and we will be able to give effect to this give effect to this in a better way. Again, on the alluded to by Treasury in presentation of the bill, in various discussions, and it is not aligned to what is actually not aligned to the Revenue Laws Amendment Bill. And the big issue is that the way we've understood this is that when there is a deduction permitted in terms of 37D, that deduction would be actually made across all three components within the retirement fund. The wording in the current bill actually alludes to the fact that only two of the components may be used, and for the deduction purposes, and your retirement component cannot be used. So we've made detailed submissions on this in our submission document to actually kind of correct this so that both the Pension Funds Amendment Bill and the Revenue Laws Amendment Bill are aligned. I think from the IRF and its members fully support the implementation of the two-pot retirement system, but getting ready for this implementation is an extremely challenging task. We've been eagerly waiting for the promulgation of the Revenue Laws Amendment Bill, and we're hoping that when NCOP reviews this or deliberates on this, it would just be one additional step, and approves it, it'll be one additional step before promulgation. What we saw on the 21st in the second draft of the Revenue Laws Amendment Bill is a lot of material changes, and retirement fund administrators have already started the development of systems, and these material changes could have an impact on that. I think first prize for the industry is to get the Revenue Laws Amendment Bill actually promulgated. We work through that, and post the implementation, if something has to be done going forward, we look through the second draft of the Revenue Laws Bill. Again, trustees of retirement funds have based their fund strategies on what is contained in the Revenue Laws Amendment Bill, and to have to go back and change fund strategies could be a cumbersome job for trustees. It could be difficult not knowing when the second draft will come into place. So I think that that's important for us to actually understand that we need some enabling legislation so that we can actually get some system, most systems developed along those lines. And when we need to tweak it, we could do that administrators can do that post the implementation. The need for certainty and clarity is a must to ensure the effective and smooth implementation on 1 September 2024. And it is for this reason we are requesting that the urgent finalization of the RLAB and the PFAB to actually happen sooner than as soon as possible. On the Pension Funds Amendment Bill, we acknowledge National Treasury for their efforts and for their engagement with the industry for introducing this bill so that we can give effect to the two-pot retirement system. However, it is concerning that there's too many unrelated two-pot changes in this bill, which requires additional systems changes and creates a split focus on what is required for just the two-pot implementation for retirement fund administrators. Again, there's a plea from the industry that those non-two-pot related changes be deferred to a later implementation date after 1 September 2024, or be delayed until the implementation of COFI. The industry, I think, understands the parliamentary process, that parliamentary process must be followed for the promulgation of legislation, but the need for this legislation to be fast-tracked needs to be considered. Registration and approval of retirement fund rules by the FSCA is mandatory to give effect to it. The FSCA needs time to actually register and approve these rules. And what's concerning is through the draft notice that we saw released by the FSCA, this could actually be extended to an participating employer level on an umbrella fund, which would then mean that there would be actually even more rules that have to be submitted subject to the FSCA's approval. So in that regard, we ask that priority be given to this legislation. It be implemented as soon as possible, it be promulgated as soon as possible, so that we actually do not deprive members of their rights to actually access their savings withdrawal on come 1 September 2024. And that's all for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Nance.
Thank you, IRFA, for your submission. Thanks very much, and also sticking to your allocated time. Let's move to the next item, interactions by members of the committee. Committee members, clarity, seeking questions, and or comments. Over to you. Honorable Manya.
Thank you, Chairperson. Firstly, let me just welcome the presentations that have been made. I think all of them are very high quality presentations. But I just want to focus on the last two. I heard ASISA very well. And I think their recommendation makes perfect sense. And I think to cure what they are talking about in terms of conflicts between this act we're dealing with now vis-a-vis the Divorce Act, I mean, we just need one sentence that says a trumping provision. Just one sentence can take care of most of their problems. I mean, if we had a sentence that simply said that if this act will take precedence over anything else that conflicts with it, there's a formulation of a trumping provision that can deal with these things. And I can also sympathize with the clarity sought in terms of Section 37D. And I just don't know, with the technocrats that must clean this up, how long will that take? It to me, all of this is a day's job. And I can also appreciate the urgency that IRFA is talking about, that we're dealing with machines, we're dealing with computers and all of that. And all they're asking for is not unreasonable. They just want to reduce complexities, they want certainty and all of that, and I accept that. I mean, this whole thing of non-port changes to be deferred, I mean, if they're not going to cause any problems, I don't see any problem with that. So for me, Chairperson, I think we've had a very substantive, very good submissions here. And I would really support that all the proposals that have been made this morning must really be quickly sorted out. Just on a light note, Chairperson, on a very light note, IRFA, your slides, I know you like your spider web thing there, but I must tell you it's a bit disruptive. If I were you, I would find something different. Yeah, but it's just on a light note. You don't have to do anything about it. I'm just mentioning it in passing. But otherwise, Chairperson, I think I'm covered with the depth of analysis. I think these two institutions have shown that they want this thing to work, and they want it to work smoothly, and they are not being general about what needs to be done. They are very clear about the recommendations that they make, and I think they should be embraced, and we should move on. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thanks, Honorable Manya. Dr. George.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thanks very much for the presentations from the industry participants. They are very useful insights, and I think they're very important insights. We have always known that this reform is very significant and that it's going to mean a lot of change in the industry. So it's going to mean system changes. It's going to mean a lot of very clear communication requirements to members to make sure that they do not get confused. And of course, because our industry is a very old one with the Pension Funds Act from 1956 already, and our pension fund evolution ongoing, although very late, but ongoing, it was always going to be quite complicated. It is unfortunate that we are running on a very tight deadline, but we've already been through that before as to why that arose. But anyway, we must move forward progressively as we are doing. And I would agree with the comments made that there are things that we need to include to make sure it is clear enough and we're not creating confusion when we make the changes to the Act. As I said before, it has been quite a fast process. It should not have been that way, but it is. And therefore, there's absolutely no reason why we cannot take those comments that are made, that are required to be put into the amendment, and put them into the amendment before we take that bill to Parliament. It is in fact possible. It requires a little bit of effort, but it is very much doable, and I would absolutely support us doing that process. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dr. George. Do we have more hands? I can't see any member raising their hand on the platform.
No, Chair, it's really on account that the comments from the stakeholders were quite brief and clear to warrant further scrutiny. I think what remains is for the committee.
Honorable Maswat, there is a request that from the TV that we show our faces if possible. This program is live streamed, and there's also SABC.
My apologies, Chair. I'm hoping that we
it's like you are on fire. There's some.
Yeah, no, apologies, Chair. Apologies, Chair.
Yeah,
but I was saying that we have had the submissions from the stakeholders. Frankly speaking, because the bill we've been dealing with for quite a number of times, their inputs are quite salient and clear to follow. It then remains for the committee at our time to see how to integrate the thoughts coming out of there, of course, subject to Treasury's input as well. So I think in line with the comments made by the last two speakers from the committee, they're really not questions to the committee, I mean to the inputs made, but rather just comments. So Chair, I think we could save ourselves time by proceeding. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Honorable Maswat. Before we end over, let me just find out from ASISA and IRFA. You are making a lot of reference to the Divorce Act. Are you saying that, because you said that we should not raise issues or put into the bill issues which are non-pension fund issues. Are you suggesting that we completely remove a reference to the Divorce Act, or it should be drafted on the other way around? What is it that you are recommending specifically on the issue of the Divorce Act? Because I think that's one of your main concerns, the manner in which Treasury has drafted the issue of the Divorce Act. What is it that you are recommending in that regard, taking from what Honorable Maswat and Honorable Manye have already alluded to? Thanks. Over to you, ASISA first, and then IRFA.
Thank you, Chair. I'll defer the question on what are the non-two-part related amendments to my colleague Rose. In respect of the changes to the Divorce Act, Honourable Manye referred to a trumping provision. that it is little bit difficult to do that if both acts have trumping provisions. So that is a discussion that we will have to have with Treasury on how it can be dealt with. I'm going to pass over to my colleague Rose if you want to add to that, and then the non-two-pot related amendments.
Thank you. Yes, the best that we can come up with is to have a line, as suggested by the Honourable Mr. Shivambu, Manyani. The best we can come up with is a line that trumps the Divorce Act. There is already a line in the Divorce Act that says, notwithstanding anything to the contrary in any law or the rules of any fund, and then it sets out how divorce orders are to be framed. Unfortunately, that line in the Divorce Act was drafted years ago, and certainly without any concept of the two-pot system in mind. So it basically refers to what is to be divided up on divorce as being what you can get on resignation. Now, on resignation, prior to two pots, you can get everything. After two pots, you can't. You can only get the vested pot and the savings pot if you haven't accessed it, which means if you get divorced the day before the 1st of September or the day after the 1st of September, you'll get a completely different outcome. So all we can come up with is a statement in the Pension Funds Act that says, notwithstanding the Divorce Act, this is what will be dealt with. Ideally, the Divorce Act should be amended to simply cross-refer to the Pension Funds Act, but there isn't time to achieve that, I'm fairly sure. But we would, somehow, this has to be resolved. Honourable Chair, you suggested that what we were asking for is to completely ignore or omit any changes in the legislation related to divorce because they're not two-pot